Oh, boy. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Come all ye fair and tender ladies, ha. It is a time to cast away. Oh, Sylvanie, seems like my whole life has flowed out in letters. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I remember the first one. September 14th, 1912. Dear Haneke, my teacher, Miss Brown, says you will be my pen friend, and I must write to you about my family and culture. My mama says I was born with the century. I'm presently 12 years old. My mama ran off with my daddy when she was 15 from her fancy house in Rich Valley. And they set out in the dead of night for Sugar Fork on my daddy's horse, Lightning. And when they got here, it was morning. And my mama looked around. She saw Sugar Fork sparkle in the sun like a lady's diamond necklace. And she saw Pilgrim Knob rise up behind the house and Blue Star Mountain beyond. And she see this big double cabin with the breezeway in between and the rosy bush by the front porch just covered with pink flowers. And then my daddy turned to her and he said, Maud, it is what I have to give you. It is all I have. It'll do, John, is what she said. And there's never been nobody up here but us'uns. We grow near about all we eat. Mostly corn, which will work you to death, especially now as Daddy is so poorly and has to lay down. It is a weakness that has come upon him from the heart. Farming is pretty work, Daddy used to say. He'd be plowing and he'd hold the plowed earth up next to his face. He loved how it smelled. And he'd say, don't this smell just like spring? And he'd take us way up on the mountain in the wee early spring to tap a birch tree and get the sap. And he'd cut off a big piece of the bark for us to lick the insides. It tasted so sweet. And he'd say, now, Ivy, this is how spring tastes. This is the taste of spring. Of all my brothers and sisters, I love Sylvanie the bestest. She is so pretty. All silver-haired like she was spotched up on the moon. We have slept in the same bed all our lives and done everything as one. It's like we was the same. I'm smart, though, and I go to school when I can, and I try to teach Sylvanie, but she can't learn. Mama said she had the brain fever as a baby. Lord, we have us some fun, though, sneaking off to have our play parties. I am the Princess Lucia. Sylvanie is Princess Melissa Clarissa. And our big sister Beulah used to play with us sometime, and she'd be Miss Margaret White. Who knows where she got that name from? But if you want little old Garney to play, you got to let him preach a funeral and sing. When I can read my title clear to mansions in the skies, I'll bid farewell to every fear and wipe my weeping eyes. Only then you got to pour water on Sylvanie's face because she cries so hard at the funeral. I take an interest in love because I want to be in love one day and write poems about it like the ones in Miss Brown's book. Young Lochinvar, so daring in love and dauntless in war. So far I've been kissed once by Oakley Fox when we was blackberry picking up on Pilgrim Knob and we could not look at each other straight since. Oakley's not bad looking, but he ain't no Lochinvar neither. You know, I always wondered where you would put your tongue, but I still do not know. We did not get to the tongue part. One thing, though, I do not want to have a lot of babies and get titties big as the moon. So it's hard to think what to do. I remain your devoted pen friend, I.V. Rowe. Dear Miss Brown, thank you kindly for your letter, but to answer your questions, no, I will not be coming back to school soon. And no, I do not pray, nor do I think much of God. It's not right what he sends on people. My daddy died, to answer your question, a week ago Thursday. It was right after that big rain. You could smell spraying in the air. And Daddy had loved the spraying. Dear Miss Brown, again, you said I always tell the truth, so I will come right out and say what I think, and it is as follows. I think you all have done a grave wrong to have brung Doc Trout up here to swear out a warrant on Sylvanie and send her away. She was not violent. And they did not need to tie her hands, neither, to put her in the wagon. She walked down Sugar Fork so nicely. I cannot feature her in the Elizabeth Masters home in Roanoke, Virginia. It don't matter how nice it is. Sylvania needs to wander the woods up on Sugar Fork. Be with people who loves her like she is. So even though you've done what you think is best, it's not best. It's wrong. I remain your truthful I.V. Rowe. Farewell, pretty Sarah. I bid you adieu. My dearest Daddy, I will leave this letter in the little lattice house we just built over your grave. We are picking up and moving on. Mama says we can't live from hand to mouth no longer. We will live in Majestic, where Mama's friend Geneva Hunt has inherited a big house, and Mama and Geneva will take in boarders. But we will not sell this place on Sugar Fork, Daddy. Mama said she'd die first. We'll just leave it for a while. But I'll dream of pretty Sarah wherever I go. Going down to Sugar Fork, going on a run, or going to Majestic to have some fun. Bow them cabbage down, bow them cabbage down. The only song that I could sing was bow them cabbage down. Majestic, Virginia. My dearest Sylvanie, I think of you so much. And I wonder, how is my Sylvanie? I know you cannot write to me, but I will come to get you by and by. Oh, Sylvanie, have you grown too? And would you know me? I'm reading this great book, Jane Eyre, about an orphan who's little and plain so far, like an elf or a fairy. I wish this was me. Instead, I'm getting a bosom like Beulah. And sometimes the men at the boarding house stare at me and it makes me feel funny. It causes Geneva to laugh, and then she winks at Judge Brack. He takes his meals here, but I think he gets more from Geneva than just her vinegar pie. Oh, one time we had the Methodist circuit rider come through, so we had to say grace at the table. Circuit rider said, Judge Brack, I defer to you on this day of our Lord. Judge Brack said, good food, good meat, praise God, let's eat. Circuit rider's mouth dropped open. Oh, and there is this fancy dressed man named John Reno who stays here off and on, and he's the agent for one of the big coal companies buying up land around here. He smiles a lot, but he's got real bad teeth. Well, one night about 3 weeks ago, they was all sitting down on the porch rocking, and he made Mama an offer. I will not sell John Arthur's land, Mama said. Why, Lord, no, said Mr. Reno. I'm not buying land. only the mineral rights. You would possess sole ownership of the surface now and forever into prosperity, $4 an acre. Oh, Mama, do it, I said, because I'm sick and tired of being so poor. Finally, Mama said, all right then, I will. So I will not have to feel poor like Jane Eyre the orphan no more. Oh, and there is this famous and fat preacher man, Sam Russell Sage, who holds camp meetings every place. And he has took up with our little brother Garney in a big way. First week of the meetings, Garney went up every night to get saved. It got to be embarrassing. Second week, they let him pass the collection plate. The meeting was in a big tent across the river with torches burning for lights. Men sat on the right side, women on the left. Everybody was singing. In the sweet, by and by, we shall meet on that beautiful shore. In the sweet, by and by, we shall meet on that beautiful shore. Sam Russell Sage got louder and louder as he went, catching every breath with a such as, you may think that death is far away, but he waits in the dark right outside this tent. He don't care if you're young nor old nor damned nor saved. He will take you when he wants. And folks were screaming and crying out. I looked over at Garney and he was eating it up. But I was terrified. I felt the fiery hand of God clutch me in the stomach. Would I go to heaven or burn in the flames of hell? And then come the invitational. Just as I am without one plea. Come on up, says Sam Russell Sage. Come on up to Jesus. And I almost done it too, but the lady I was with had a sick spell right then and we had to leave immediately. So I've not been saved yet. I hope I will not die anytime soon. Oh, Sylvania. I'm busting with news, but I cannot tell another soul, for it's so hard to say. I'm bad, Sylvania. Bad. Rotten clear through. This boy here named Lonnie Rash. Whenever I'm in the same room with him, I feel that fiery hand again, and I can't hardly breathe. I feel I've got to pee. And I've let him put his tongue way back in my mouth too, and the fiery hand grabbed me then for good. Sometimes he will tickle me some and feel my titties. And 2 times he has took out his thing for me to see, but so far we've not done anything else with it. So I'm probably not too young to have a complete nervous breakdown like Jane Eyre when she got shut up in the red room. Your sister Ivy. Dear Sylvania, you would not believe what has happened. Well, I took Lonnie Rash in the room with me for the first time, closed the door behind us, took off all my clothes, laid down on the bed, and let him do it to me. It hurt a lot more than I thought it would, but Lonnie said that he loved me and that we would get married. Then he went to sleep. But I will not marry Lonnie Rash, for I do not really love him, not like Jane Eyre loved Mr. Rochester, and not like Mama loved our daddy. And besides, I do not believe that if you make your bed, you got to sleep in it forever. Do you, Sister Ivy? Dear Sylvain, Lonnie is gone. He joined up with the army here just before they left for the war. I walked with him down to the bridge. He said, now, Ivy, you be good while I'm gone, girl. We'll get married as soon as I get back. So, honey, I just didn't have the heart to tell him. I just waved. Oh, at first I could not imagine a baby inside. And then I could. You know, I do have a good imagination. Then I can't explain it. It's like I was the little baby caught inside of my own self and dying to escape. But I could not. Geneva said, "Don't worry, honey, people forget real soon. I used to be a scandal, now I'm an institution." Even though I'm going to have a baby, I remain your loving sister, Ivy Rowe. Dear Sylvania, I'm writing this in a hurry, in the middle of packing to leave, because I want you to always know where I will be. Now it will be with Beulah and her husband Curtis in the company town at the Diamond Mining Company. Mama died in her sleep 2 weeks ago. She looked like she died at peace. She died in her bed dreaming of Daddy and Sugar Fork. That's what I believe. The people here have been real nice to me, but they think it's smart for me to leave since I'm ruined. And I have to say, I'm excited to leave. You know, I always did want to travel. And I think my baby is excited too. I think I can feel her moving. Oh, I know she's a little girl, and I will raise her up good over on Diamond Mountain where nobody knows her mother is your ruined sister, Ivy Rowe. Leaving Majestic, going on a run, going to Diamond. Have some fun. Woo! The Diamond Mining Company, Diamond, Virginia. Oh, Sylvania, picture it if you can. Row upon row of houses and people in every one, like bees in a hive. It looks like the houses just sprung up from the mountain ready-made, like mushrooms after a rain. In the lowest rows, the houses are just 2 rooms and so jam up on each other you can't breathe, but nobody cares because the money's so good. Then they get bigger about halfway up. Beulah's has got 4 rooms, a little dirt yard, a pump out back, and an outside toilet with a box to catch the shit in. No wonder she's getting so uppity. Then at the very top of the hill is Superintendent Ransom's house. Beulah says it has got a ballroom and 5 bedrooms with mirror doors. Sometimes it looks to me like a little toy town built by a big rich child. There's play money too, called scrip. The company will buy you everything if you live here and take it right out of your pay so you don't have to worry about a thing. By the way, guess who's over here now working? Oakley Fox. I saw him at the store, and he looks just the same as he did when he was a boy back home. Oh, Sylvania, I will be so glad when my baby gets here, and I will have somebody to talk to. I will name her Jolie, which is French, and it means pretty. Your loving sister, Ivy Rowe. Sylvania, you should see Jolie. She is so beautiful. I want to tell you what it was like when she was born. First of all, can you believe old Granny Rowe just appeared here smack out of the blue? It's the full moon, honey, she said, and sure enough, the next time I got up to pee, my water broke all over the porch. I remember the water splashing on my feet. And then the great pushing, opening, tearing feeling. And just before she came out, I could hear it, Sylvania. I swear I could hear my bones parting. And then Jolie was out, dripping blood and gore and making a funny little snuffly noise. Granny Rowe cut the cord with the kitchen knife and bound her in the strippy cloths and handed her to me. And all the poems I ever knew raced through my head because she was the prettiest thing I had ever seen. She grabbed hold of my finger and held on for dear life. And then it got real quiet. Quietest night in the world. But I was too excited to sleep. I just held Jolie close by my side, and I watched the moonlight come across the quilt, square by square. And I kept thinking, this is important. I want to remember this. I think that's why I write you so many letters, Sylvanie. To hold on to what is passing. I know. Gotta walk that lonesome valley. Yeah. Gotta walk it by yourself. Mm-hmm. Ain't nobody else gonna walk it for you. You gotta walk that lonesome valley by yourself. You're Sylvanie. Lonnie is dead from the war. And now that the war is over, the coal business is slacking off, and it looks like hard times is on the way. Thank goodness for Oakley Fox, who comes by a lot and is good to lean on. Oh, Sylvanie, how to tell this? Oh, well, every 4th of July, the company throws a big party. And that's where I met Franklin Ransom, the superintendent's son, who lives at the top of Company Hill, remember? Well, now he comes around, takes me riding in his car and to the picture show. And guess what? Oakley has pitched a fit. What's this about Franklin Ransom? He said his whole face was black. He'd just come from the mine. You're my girl. I said, Oakley Fox, you are my best old friend. Don't be crazy. But he wouldn't laugh with me or smile even. He stomped off and kicked the screen door on the way out. Though he still comes around right much and brings Jolie candy or a little book. Jolie just loves Oakley. Oakley is real good. But I don't love him. I do not. Franklin Ransom is not any good at all, and I know it, but Lord, is he fun. One night we went up to his parents' house, lays off gallivanting somewhere, and we had the whole house to ourselves. Franklin put on a record. Who's sorry now? Oh, Sylvanie, I never danced like that before in my life. It was like movie dancing. Dee, 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 dee. Dee, 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 dee. And every time we danced by the coffee table, Franklin would lean over and grab the bourbon, and we'd take a drink right out of the bottle. Dee, 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 dee. Later, Franklin took me in his parents' bedroom and laid me down on the pale green satin bed. Later still, he turned on the bedside light and got me to look in the mirror door. I'd never seen a mirror door before. I'd never seen my whole body all at one time. And Sylvanie, I'm beautiful. Beulah always said we look good in red. We look even better in nothing. And after that, we sat out on the lawn chairs naked and smoked cigarettes. And I have to say, I did not feel half bad the next morning walking the Red Dog Road down the mountain home, because it's a fact that if you're ruined like I am, it frees you up somehow. Your fun-loving sister, Ivy Rowe. Dear Sylvanie, the mine fell in and I got married. Here's how it happened. I was working at the store, pricing baby clothes. September 20th, I will never forget that date, 1926. I had just drunk a cup of coffee, and I was talking with Miss Jones. She was complaining how her mother won't eat any food but white food, like white bread and mashed potatoes and grits. when the whistle blew. She stopped talking with her mouth wide open, and I put the baby clothes back on the counter. The whistle had never blown like that between shifts in all the years I had been at Diamond. But it blew and blew, and we all knew what it meant. Nobody said a word. I walked out of the store and started up the hill home, and whistle kept blowing and blowing like a nightmare. From houses all over Company Hill, people let out running. Cars started up. And then school let out, and kids poured out of the schoolhouse door and came up the hill or joined those walking and running to the mine, a line like a colorful snake going up the mine road behind the store and out of sight around the side of Diamond Mountain. When the whistle finally stopped, the silence was awful. And then Jolie come running up. Mama, what is it? Is it a fire? And I said, oh, honey, don't you know it's trouble at the mine? I'm afraid it's big trouble. And then her pretty little face turned sad, and she asked, is Martha's daddy down in there? And I said, yes, honey, he is. And I took her out in the yard, and I got her to scratching pretty pictures in the dirt with a stick. And I swept off the yard real good. And then I swept it off again. Oh, Sylvania, you would not believe what a beautiful day it was. My mind fluttered around and around like the butterflies in the Queen Anne's lace up on Sugar Fork. Not landing on something. Not landing on something. What? I made some brownies for Jolie and some soup beans for anybody who might want to eat them later, and finally I couldn't stand it any longer. I said, come on, Jolie, we go into the mine. And we set out down the hill at about 4 o'clock, me and Jolie holding hands. We passed the store. Some people were singing.
Rock of Ages, clap for me. Let me hide myself in thee.
Past the baseball field, the pump, across the railroad track, winding up the hill. By the time we got there, it was near about dark. The mine itself was a great charred, gaping hole with smoke still coming from it. They had dug through, and they were bringing them out. The only way they could identify the bodies was by the check numbers on them. Some came out alive, but the rescue business was mighty slow. It got darker. Flares went up. And every now and then they'd come out. And every woman there would strain forward to hear the name of the man they were bringing out. Sneed. Lowell Sneed. And that man's family would give a cry or a moan and rush forward, and the rest would fall back. Asa Horn. Raymond Childress. My mind was still fluttering as I stood there. Gayhart. Rush Gayhart. This was our neighbor, Martha's daddy. Martha's mama rushed forward, but she walked back slow. Walked on past me down the hill. Still, I couldn't leave. My mind fluttered and fluttered, and finally landed. And then I knew who I was waiting for and why I couldn't leave. It was close to dawn when they finally called his name. Oakley Fox. I didn't know if he'd come out dead or alive, covered up or walking. I jerked Jolie along crying down the hill, and then I stopped. The huge black mouth of the mine yawned smoky and wide before me. And then 3 men came walking out. One of them was Oakley, limping, holding his arm, funny black face. Still, I could tell it was him. Oakley! Oakley, I hollered. But he couldn't see anything yet. You could tell, I think his mouth moved. Oakley, Oakley. And I pulled Jolie through all those people crowded around to Oakley at last. He stretched out his arms as wide as the world. Baby, baby, it's you, he said. His lip was bleeding. His collar was stiff with blood. The way he smelled made me choke. It was so bitter and strong. Then he drew me in close and hugged me hard. And then he reached for Jolie too. So Oakley and me got married. And we'll be leaving here and going back to live in the house on Sugar Fork. And we'll come and get you too, Sylvania. You and me, we'll clean the house together. And we'll get chickens and let them run up on Pilgrim Knob and plant the garden. Farming is pretty work, I remember Daddy saying. And when Oakley kisses me, I can hear Daddy saying, slow down now, Ivy. This is the taste of spring. Your happy sister, Ivy R. Fox. Going down Diamond Creek, going on a run, going back to Sugar Fork. Back on Sugar Fork. Dear Beulah, how are things over on Diamond Mountain? Oakley and me are doing real good. We sat out here of an evening where Daddy used to sit to play a tune, and Oakley whittles, which he's gotten really good at, and I shell my beans. Then when it gets too dark to whittle, Oakley will wrap me up in a hug as big as Bethel Mountain and take me to bed, where we lay tangled up in each other all night long. Sometimes we will wake to love, and then sleep and wake to love again. Your loving sister, Ivy Fox. My dearest Sylvania, seems so natural now to write your name, though it has been 7 long years since I've done so. I always thought you'd get better and come home, and it just felt like a part of me had died when I found out you would never come. But I've been dying to write ever since the lights come on last week. Now, this is the rural electrification I'm talking about. They have put in poles and run electric lines all the way up Home Creek. It's the law. Someday they may come to this holler, too. Last Tuesday, me and Oakley were sitting out on the porch resting after dinner, which I don't get a chance to do much of, when lo and behold, all up and down the bottom, lights come on, twinkling like stars. Oakley said, praise be to God. He's gotten real religious. I said, I think you ought to say praise be to the Appalachian Power Company. He said, you're a sassy woman, but you're mine. Sylvania, I have been sunk for so long in a great, soft darkness. I have lost my spunk some way. Till at 37, there's not much left but a dried up husk. Me leached out by hard work and babies. Maybe I'm having to change of life early. When the twins is born, it's like I didn't have near enough hands. When Louida came, not enough time. Maudie is the prettiest little baby I ever had, but when she sucks, it's like she's sucking the life right out of me. And it ain't no way to make a living from a farm. And for somebody that loves farming as much as Oakley does, not to do any good at it is awful. It's not you, I keep telling him, it's the depression. But Oakley is always working, his face turned away. Except he does do right much politicking around. He's a real good Democrat. One time he voted for a dead man because he was a Democrat. But I just sat out here and rocked my sweet Maudie and hum, perhaps. Watched Louida play with her little baby doll. Oh, wonder what Bill and Danny Ray are up to. No good, I reckon. We will miss Jolie, but I'm not surprised the state is sending her to college. I always said Jolie is real smart. And now sitting here watching these lights twinkling like fairy lamps through this blue haze, I can sense a big change coming. But it ain't got up here yet. Your sister, Ivy. Dear Sylvania. Something awful is about to happen here, and it looks like I can't do nothing about it. I'm on fire. I feel like if I touch kindling, it'll light. His name is Honey Breeden. He's a bee man. It was Sunday when he came. Oakley and them had gone to church, and Oakley's folks were coming up here for dinner afterward. I was down in the spring house, wearing naught but a shift. I had a hold of Louida's hand, and we was climbing the steep stone steps. Ma'am, Honey was standing at the top of the steps, outlined against the sun. Where are your bee gums, ma'am? I got a swarm up here for you in the sack. Just a minute, I said, and he stood right there with his arms folded across his chest while I made my way, pulling Louida, who cried and cried. He spooked her some way. You must be Honey Breeden, I said. My husband's been looking for you. Well, he might be sorry he found me, he said. And Honey was looking hard at me. And then I got to the top of the steps, but Honey never moved. Well, let me pass, I said. Yes, ma'am, Honey said. And as I passed close by him, it's like a current jump from him to me, or me to him and back again. I don't know. Or it's like we both had it in us and it just leaped out when we met, arched between us through the leafy air. Oh, Lord, I think I thought. The bee gums are in the orchard in back of the house, I said finally, and ran. A bee stung me through my shift. I'll be back, Honey called. I was in a fever. First a cold sweat, and then a hot flash. I thought this must be the change of life for sure. And then Oakley's folks drove up. Why, Ivy, honey, you look all thin and wore out, Oakley's mama said. We have brung you some fried peach pies. Dreamer, give her the pies. And I set out the ham and the potato salad and the deviled eggs. Every time I took a step, my bee sting hurt like blazes. And then Oakley's daddy said, this is mighty good ham, honey. And I jumped a mile at the mention of his name. Thank you, sir. And now Oakley was staring at me. He said, Ivy, you look all hot or something. I was over at Maureen Grace when she had a hot flash and shook like a leaf, Oakley's mama said. Could you pass me another peach pie? And then Dreamer said, did I tell you what Bethy Rolette said to me coming out the church door? She said, Dreamer, you look so good from the back. You think I ought to be mad or not? Everybody was laughing. I felt my bee sting secret under my skirt. I just don't know what will happen. Your sister, Ivy. Dear Sylvania, I was washing dishes when he came. Came right in the front door without knocking. Heidi, I said. He said, Heidi, we're going to take us a little walk. I left the dishes in the sink, wrote Oakley a note, and followed him out the back door. Bye-bye, bye-bye, Louida and Maudie called from the yard. They both loved to say bye-bye. And we set out on a path through the orchard, past the bee gums, and commenced to climb in Pilgrim Knob. I felt like a girl again. I was dropping years as I went. Finally, we were walking the top of the ridge above the tree line, and then the ridge turned flat like a meadow. This here is what you call a bald, Honey said, and it was covered with little white flowers like stars, like a carpet of stars. Sure is pretty, I said. He took my hand and led me through the flowers onto another path that stopped at the very edge of the mountain on top of the highest cliff. And for the first time, I could see over the top of Bethel Mountain to another mountain. Blue, purple, and then mountain after mountain just rolling like the sea. And then Honey dropped to the mossy ground and pulled me down beside him. See that hawk, he said, pointing to the left, and when I turned my head, he kissed me. And he said, "What hawk?" I said. Sugar Fork seemed far away. I just laid back in the moss while he did everything to me. Everything. "Now do this," Honey said. And I did. I've never thought of doing such a thing before in my life. I think it's against the law. And then Honey stretched out beside me and slept. I got up and I walked to the edge to look out again. It was the first time I'd ever been naked in the sunshine. The wind lifted my hair. Honey sat up. He said, "You look like a princess." Oh, no. I'm too old to be a princess. "Well," he said, "you look like a queen." And then all of a sudden he made a run at me. "Gotcha," he said. I leaped back at him. "Gotcha back," I said. And we played tag there on the ball on top of Blue Star Mountain. Far on the mountain, far in the sea. Honey was running backwards. Can't catch me, but I'm as big and strong as he is. And I toppled him into the starry flowers where we laid face to face and leg to leg and toe to toe. Now he was doing things to me with his tongue. I reckon he goes from woman to woman like a bee goes from flower to flower, I thought. But he was the last thing left to happen to me, so it didn't bother me one bit. "Here now," Honey said, handing me my clothes. "We better get a move on." No. "We can stay for a while," I said. And we did. A white mist covered the whole world every morning. I would have stayed up there with him until I starved to death and died, I reckon, living on love. If he'd not finally got tired of me and I'd not got sick. "It is time," Honey said. And even though I cried and pitched a fit, I followed him down the mountain that morning. He was singing.
"I'm just a poor wayfaring stranger, traveling through this world of woe.
And that's all I can remember. Until I'm back home again and I'm surprised to see all the cars parked around. The yard was swept clean. The porch and breezeway was full of people. You could hear the low buzz of talking. And then Bill and Danny Ray come running from the side of the house. "Mama," they hollered, and near about knocked me down. "Mama, where you been?" And I hugged them and I looked back up at the porch. But all the talking had quit and the people just stood like statues looking down. It was Oakley, his mama and daddy, Dreamer, Holden, Maudie, and some people I didn't even know. Then Oakley looked at me with no expression at all on his face and turned without a word and walked back in the house. I started up the hill. Dreamer was staring at me so hard she liked to bore holes in my face. And then without moving her mouth, she said, "It is Louida." "What about Louida?" I said. "Louida is dead," she said. "We buried her this morning in the orchard." Oh, my God. Oh, my God. "We think it was her appendix," Oakley's daddy said, "but I pushed them all aside and ran through the breezeway to the back of the house. And there at the top of the orchard was a little pile of red dirt. I could not go up there. I just sat down right where I was on the back steps and cried. I cried for a long time. Finally, I could feel Oakley standing behind me. He said, "Get up, Ivy, and go take care of your children." And I did, and I'm still doing so. And I will continue. But I won't be writing any more letters for a while, as my heart is too heavy. But I just had to write this letter, Sylvania, to set it all down. Sister Ivy, you gotta walk that lonesome valley. You gotta walk it by yourself. Ain't nobody else gonna walk it for you. You gotta walk that lonesome valley by yourself. My dearest Sylvania, I know it's been so long since last I wrote, and now we've got electricity and a radio. Oakley is crazy for baseball, especially Joe DiMaggio, who's hitting so good this year. Now for the story of how I was not saved. Our little brother Garney come back to town leading one of them gospel crusades. And although he seemed to be on good terms with God, he's no brother of mine as far as I'm concerned. If he's going to heaven, I will rot in hell and be happy about it. First time we sat down to dinner, he's still fat as a pig. And he was asked to say grace. He started in praying and would not stop. He went on real dramatic, like a man in a play. I finally peeked up and got a good look at his wife, Ruthie. He said he met her when he took the message to Tullahoma, Tennessee, and she was among the saved. She did not look saved to me. She had long pointed fingernails, red. Her lips were fixed in a perfect bow. And she had painted on eyebrows in little thin half circles above each eye, which made her look real surprised. Garney was still going on about all the sinners lost to God, and finally, when the skin was forming on the gravy, he was done. Then last Saturday, windy April day, I was all alone here on the hillside hanging out clothes when Garney appeared, all sweating and red in the face, fanning himself with a little funeral fan, which I reckon he'd brung up from the church. He sat down on a big rock and he commenced to flipping through his little leather Bible. Finally, I couldn't stand it any longer. I said, "Well, Garney, how many have you saved this week?" "We have brought 19 souls to God so far, sister." Oh, now that he's a preacher, he calls himself we. "And that's why I've come up this holler today, for it has come to my ears that you have sinned and not repented." I hung up Maudie's little yellow dress. "You," he said, coming closer, "are a whore and an abomination." He was getting so worked up, the spit was forming little bubbles at the corner of his mouth. And I was getting mad. I flapped out Oakley's jeans and hung them up. "I'm glad to hear you saved so many souls, Garney. How much money did you take in?" "Oh, you always were too smart for your own good," he sputtered, "and now look what it has brought you." And the wind picked up, the bedsheet was flapping around my head. Garney was pointing in his little Bible. "Proverbs 6:27, can a man take fire in his bosom and his clothes not be burned? Whoso committeth adultery with a woman destroyeth his own soul." "Well, what about the woman?" I said through the blowing sheet. "That's all about a man." "Listen, Ivy. Proverbs 7:25, her house is the way to hell, which is where you dwell now, Ivy, with that sweet baby Luida down in the cold, damp earth, the flesh rotting off her little bones while you pull down your pants for any... But right then, my heart gave the awfulest leap, causing me to stumble and fall. Garney was unbuckling his belt. I reckon he was fixing to whoop me. I don't know for sure. All of a sudden, there was Oakley in the middle of it all. "Damn you, Garney, damn you." And Garney grunted like a pig every time Oakley hit him. Then Garney stumbled off down the hill. Oakley helped me up and looked at me. "Well, Ivy," he said, "this sure is some family I have married into." My wash was flapping on the line. It looked like my whole family was out there dancing to beat the band. Your loving, proud, and hell-bent sister. P.S. I forgot to say that when Garney left town with the crusade, Ruthie stayed in Majestic. She says Garney has not done it for 7 years. He can't do it, she says. Oh, I picked up Garney's little Bible that he lost in the fight, and I've been studying it. It's pretty good. You know, I always loved a story. Dear Jolie, you write that you're in love with your young man and you might marry him before he goes off to the war. And I say, Jolie, don't. Wait and see who he is when he gets back. Love him all you want, honey. You can't help that anyway if you're any kin to me. Just don't marry him too quick. Taylor Cunningham III sounds like a king to me. Just joking. I don't know what you mean, a good catch. I think you've been away too long, Jolie. Your daddy breathes heavy now. I reckon it's all those years in the mines. But I think he is better looking than ever. So I remain up here on Sugar Fork, your loving mama. August the 8th, 1947. Dear Jolie, I know your brother Danny Ray has called you on the long-distance telephone, which I could not bear to do. So you know about your daddy. We buried him yesterday.
Oh, come, angel band, come and around me stand.
I will not go on and on, it is my wont. But you can rest assured of one thing. If there is a heaven, your daddy is right there. Now you just take good care of that little boy of yours and say hello to Taylor. Love, Mama. Oh, Sylvania. Oakley was too young to die. And I'm too young to be a widow woman, even though some days I do feel as old as these hills, which I walk amongst now almost without ceasing. Oh, I know they're saying up and down the hall that I'm crazy, but I wake in the early light and I walk. I can't help it. And while I'm walking, I'm thinking. You know, I have spent half my life wanting and the other half grieving. And most often wanting, grieving, and grieving the same thing, precious little in between. But as I set all this down to you, another fact hits me. Now I can read every book that John O'Hara ever wrote. I can act like a crazy old woman if I want to, which I do. I can get up in the morning and eat a hot dog like I did yesterday. And who knows what I might do tomorrow. Your sassy sister, Ivy Rowe Fox. March the 8th, 1954, dear Jolie, your David is fine, all bones and freckles. And I'm happy to have a boy up here again. I love it when he says, I aim to farm, Mama. Now then, about the divorce. There's not a reason in the world to feel bad about that. The divorce, like the TV, is the wave of the future, if you ask me. And it was not your fault. It was in his nature, and that is that. So maybe it's not as unnatural as we all think. I've taken to reading Ecclesiastes now. To everything there's a season. That makes sense. You just got to keep on keeping on, Jolie. And I'm counting on you to be a writer, like I never was. Loving, Mama. Rowe. March the 22nd, 1961. Dear Jolie, I don't reckon your David has got himself in any trouble we can't fix. Send him on again, honey. I'll never forget what a time I had with Danny Ray in high school, and look at him now, a lawyer, beats all. And thank you for sending your book. It was pretty good. Although I do think you could have used more of a love interest. And you might want to put in a more plot next time, too. As there is an awful lot that does happen in this world, if you ask me. Maudie is teaching twirling now at the Charm School in Richlands and how to walk part-time. She's got one of those little round hats like Jackie Kennedy wears. What do you think of Jackie Kennedy? I think she's too thin and bow-legged. And Maudie is on birth control pills. Those are the greatest things since drip dry. You ought to get yourself some, Jolie, just in case. Well, you can't ever tell when a love interest might come along. And speaking of love interest, don't forget to put a bigger one in your next book. Mr. Rochester in Jane Eyre is my idea of a good love interest. I would have him be smoldering. September 14th, 1974, dear Danny Ray. You have got a nerve going into politics over there. I did not raise you to be a fat cat or a Republican. I want you to know what's going on over here. Oh, everybody has come in and took everything out. First the trees, and then the coal, and now the children. We have been robbed and left for dead. Well, there's not much to say about me and the Peabody Coal Company. I'm surprised you saw it in the paper. I did it for David. You know, he's in Vietnam. My little David, carrying a gun. You know, he lived with me 2 times, and he loved it here. And he said he was coming back, so I did not have a choice. Oh, I forgot about the mineral rights, Mama had so, until they done the augering up by the Blackberry Cliffs and messed up the creek. Then they up and brung a bulldozer up here to strip the outcrop. I had to do something fast, or they would have mined out this whole cliff and just left us sitting here in a watershed. So I come out before daybreak to wait for that dozer. And when he come, I said, don't you come no further. Had Oakley's old 12 gauge with me. It was not loaded, but the bulldozer man, he didn't know that. He run off faster and squat. Left the dozer just sitting there. Meanwhile, your brother Bill come up from town to tell me, Mama, this place is not worth saving. Why don't you just come into town and live with us? He did not say, since you were sick. What I did not say was, I'm doing this for my grandson who's fighting in Vietnam while you are running the Kiwanis Club. What I said was, I will think about it. When those Peabody Coal folks come up the second time, followed by them reporters, I was ready for them. I had climbed up on the seat of that dozer, all dolled up. I knew they'd be taking pictures. I even put on some lipstick Maudie left up here. Hot pink. That's what Maudie wears. Well, as you know, they backed off for good at the sight of those reporters. Whoa. This land will be waiting here for David when he gets back. What did you think of my lipstick? Love, Mama. Dear Jolie. Oh, me. You asked about the letters. Well, because you are a writer, Jolie, I will try to explain. I know your Aunt Sylvanie died in the Elizabeth Masters home in the great flu epidemic that took so many lives. But Sylvania, you see, was a part of me, my other half, my heart. So I went on writing her letters all these years and put them in the cedar chest where Maudie found them. You know what I'm doing now with those letters? I'm taking them out to the fire pit where I'm burning them, every one. I'm sending them up in smoke. The letters didn't mean anything. It was the writing that signified. I remain forevermore your loving Mama. I wish I was a tiny sparrow and I had wings and I could fly. Oh, Sylvania, Lord, it is a pretty day. It reminds me of our daddy and how he give us that bark to lick. And he said, slow down now, Ivy. This is the taste of spring. I never have slowed down. Oh, how Oakley loved the spring. When I close my eyes, I see him always. Oakley always coming out of that black and smoking mine. And I see Lonnie Rash the day he left for the war. There's a time for war. And I see Franklin Ransom the night we danced and danced in his father's house. Oh, there's a time to dance. And there is a time to be born. I see Jolie close by my side, and the moonlight advancing slow across the quilt, square by square. I thought once I would be a writer. I thought then I would write of love. How little we know. I never become a writer at all. Instead, I have loved and loved and loved. I am fair wore out with it. I followed honey up and up above the tree line. There's a time for every purpose under heaven. Oh, the sky is so blue. Hawk flies round and round. I think I hear the old bell ringing like it rang to call 'em home. I was young then, and I walked in my body like the queen.